Welcome to a video blog to support my book, The Great War in the Argonne Forest, French and American Battles 1914 to 18 by Richard Merry. Chapter 1, The Writer's Cut. Inevitably, with a book such as this, much gets cut by the book's editor and publisher, and most of the 5,000 plus photographs and postcards I have collected over the last 20 years didn't make the book. So here is a short video with some more background to the book and some of my collection of photographs. The book started out to commemorate my great-uncle Bob, a car salesman living in Paris, too old for the war, who nevertheless managed to join the French Foreign Legion and found himself serving on the Argonne front during the winter of 1914-15. The Argonne Forest is a north-south strip of dense wood approximately 10 miles long and 3 miles wide. Historically, it formed part of France's border defences between France and Germany. The forest is dominated by a former Roman road, the Haute Chevauchée or High Road, each side of which drops down into steep ravines, densely forested where the great battles took place during the winter of 1914-15. The forest was historically home to itinerant woodcutters who lived within the boundary of the forest, cutting down trees for household building, furniture and firewood. Following on from the woodcutters were the charbonniers, or charcoal burners, another group of itinerants who lived in the forest burning the remnants of the trees into charcoal for the local pottery kilns and glass kilns that surrounded the forest. Surrounding the forest were picture postcard villages that for the most part had been left undisturbed for centuries. Within months, the full might of the first fully industrial war of the 20th century ravaged the landscape. The Bois de Gruery at the northern end of the forest earned its nickname the Witch's Cauldron to the German troops and the Forest of Blood to the French troops. This book salutes the courage of the French soldiers, or poilus, who staunchly defended their homeland. This book also looks at the courage of the Italian volunteers, the Garibaldis, who fought so bravely in the forest during the winter of 1914-15. The German troops, or the Boche as they were colloquially known to both the French and British troops, who clung tenaciously to the forest for 4 years. It was, though, the arrival of the American doughboys in the autumn of 1918 that finally broke the spirit of the German defenders and smashed through the German defences. After the 11th of November 1918, when the guns fell silent, the forest took several years to clear. The shattered stumps of the former Argonne forest took a generation to cut down, clear and regrow. Above all else, though, it was the location of circa 150,000 dead on each side in the forest and their removal from temporary graves and cemeteries to more fitting permanent burial places. So where does the story of my great-uncle Bob start? Here in Chelsea on the 26th of September 1873, George Robert Merry was born at home. Son of Joseph Xavier Merry, a senior clerk in the Admiralty based at Somerset House on the Strand. A few years after Bob was born, his father retired from the Admiralty, first of all moving to Penge, and then Forest Hill, where in this house my grandfather was born. Bob probably attended Streatham Grammar School, where he learnt both French and German, which would stand him in good stead in both his business career and later in the Argonne campaign. In 1892, Bob was a member of the world-famous Catford Cycling Club in South London, regularly racing and at one point becoming a champion. They owned the fastest track in Europe and people crowded around the surrounding streets and hills to watch them race. Later, in 1892, Bob arrived in Paris to race in the new Paris cycle racing track, Velodrome Buffalo, so named as the site had previously been the home of the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. Bob racing the French champion, and the race was given as a dead heat with both of them crossing the line together. This was subsequently made a French win. No doubt Bob, in the sporting fashion of the time, conceded on such an auspicious occasion. The first known picture of Bob, taken at a cycle meeting in 1893 at Herne Hill, South London. Bob is being held on the second bicycle from the right. So thank you to listening to Tales from the Great War in the Argonne Forest. In the next chapter, I'll be talking about Uncle Bob and how he moved from selling car tyres to selling sports cars across the globe prior to the start of the Great War in August 1914.